Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hyperconscious Podcast. Alan, what is hyperconscious?
Once you understand why something is the way that it is, now you have the power to change it. Great conversations with great people and great questions are the keys to the kingdom of unlocking your consciousness.
Every single action that you do starts as a thought. When you control the way you think, you will control the way you act, and you will control the way you live. That is hyperconscious. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. This is episode number 86, Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll with J.B. Frank. J.B. Frank is the bass player for the band Kingdom Come. They were super successful in the 80s, the 90s, and they're actually touring again now.
In 1988, his band had a song that actually knocked Michael Jackson off the top list. They've gone platinum. He knows all the rock stars. He's completely lived the rock star lifestyle. And what I found most fascinating about this rep is that we were able to pull back the curtain on a time in his life when he was very unhappy, but everyone else saw his life as the ultimate dream. Again, for the listeners, this episode gets very spiritual, very, very deep. So if you're not into that, this might not be the episode for you, but it was very interesting.
JB has written over 600 songs, and the next thing you're going to hear is a song that he chose to play on the podcast. He felt that it fit super well, and we hope you enjoy.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. No. Geographically? Geographically. This is cool. So I would say make sure that pretty face is showing.
Yes, true.
They're going to want to see that thing. They're going to want to see that thing, Alan. That face. You good? Ready?
This is a waltz, right? So it's in 3/4. So even the time signature is in 9. So it's called Awakening. Fair are the ladies who dance by the moon, and blessed are the children who play in the dune. 1 million fireflies light up the sky. Indigo waterfalls flow from your eyes. Awaken in me the earth, the wind and the fire. We are the circle of life, the spiral of power. Awaken in me the earth, the wind and the fire. Take us higher and higher and higher. Take us higher and higher and higher. Blessed are the mermaids who play in the waves, and blessed are the yogis who pray in the caves. As 1 million fireflies light up the sky, and indigo waterfalls flow from your eyes. Awaken in me the earth, the wind and the fire. Awaken the dreams and the visions and the memories in the water. 'Cause we are the spiral of life in the circle of power. So awaken in us the earth, fire. Take us higher and higher and higher. Take us higher and higher and higher. We are the spiral of life in the circle of power. Thank you. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that we have a little bit of a different setup here. Terrence was kind enough to think of us and reach out to this gentleman here, JB Frank, the bassist for Kingdom Come. You, by all standards, are a rock star. You have traveled around the world. You have toured with bands that everybody's heard of. People have heard of your band. You're super successful. You guys have gold and platinum albums.
Yes.
So can you go into who you are for the listeners that might not know who you are and talk a little bit about what being a rock star is all about?
Well, okay, we can go there. Let's see. Well, my name is JB Frank. I was, actually, it used to be called Johnny B. Frank, but I kind of dropped that, and my real name's John Burt Frank, and never trust a guy with 3 first names. Born in Ohio, my life was kind of strange because I didn't get it. I don't think, I didn't get going to school. I didn't get any of that stuff. I was a poor student, and I started playing piano when I was about 4 years old. My cousins tell me, yeah, you were a really good pianist when you were like 4 years old. And I was like, oh, I didn't know I was playing. I just thought I was banging on a piano, but my cousins seemed to think I was a pretty good pianist. I took up guitar when I was about 7. My mom bought me a guitar for Christmas. I took up drums when I was 9, and this was something I was good at right away. I remember sitting down on the drums, and I could play drums when I sat down, and I was like, no one ever taught me how to play drums. I knew how to play drums,
Wow.
And so, the fact that I was a really poor student, I had really low attention span. I didn't want to be there. I was an insomniac, and to make me get up at 6 in the morning and get on a school bus and walk through snow. I'm going to sound like President Lincoln's story here, but I used to get up in the morning. Sometimes I would get up and I would check my traps because I was a trapper and a hunter, since I was a really young child, probably just to impress my father, and then I would check my traps, and then I would walk a half a mile through the snow to catch a school bus to go to school that I hated, didn't like my teachers, didn't like my school, and anything like that. So music was something that was like, as soon as I got into music and got into a band, I had my friends, my cousins played music. We'd all give on a concert for my grandmothers on, Christmas and stuff. And so that was what I, was magnetically attracted to in life, was just playing music. It's like I didn't have a choice, and when I went to college, I went to, Vietnam was going on at the time, and I was like, I don't think I could handle Vietnam, so I got a student deferment and went to college, and it was like, I had like a 0.8 grade average that I graduated high school with. So to get into college, the only college I could get in was this party school, Ohio University. And as soon as I got in there, I joined a band. And, my band was really popular in college. I was in the Jerry Groom band. And he is a guy who had studied with Duane Allman. And this place was called Ivan's, and it was right on College Street in, Athens, Ohio. And it held about 200 people, and we had about 1,400 people a night in there.
Wow.
And the band got all the money from the door, and I was like, well, I was making money and playing music, and, I was doing art in college and, taking some comparative studies. But So that was it. I mean, music was my life. I didn't really have a choice. That's all I was good at.
But you said you were pulled towards it. You said it was like magnetic.
Yeah.
Did it just, this for us, it just kind of clicked.
Yeah.
Like once, I was telling you in the preamble that getting to sit down with somebody like you and ask you your deepest, darkest things and about your experiences and what you've learned is like, it's such a blessing. And we're so grateful that we're able to do that, but it just feels right.
Yeah.
So how did you know that?
Do what you love and love what you do, man. It's the formula for success, for sure, you know. And, you know, so I've always, like, you know, chased my, you know, what you know, excites me the most, you know. I could never walk by a piano, right? I was like, look at that piano. And I'm like, I got to go play it. You know, there's a guitar over there. I got to go play it. You know, there's a drum set over there. I've always had to go play it. So it's just something, I don't know whether I did it in a past life or, you know, I've been a musician for many lifetimes and, you know, popped into this lifetime and, like, you know, tried to figure it out again, you know.
It's beautiful.
So, yeah.
So when you found music found you, kind of the same in its own. So like you kind of got swept into this whole life probably very quickly, it sounds like. So during Vietnam, I actually like the classic rock is like my favorite. Like to this day, like Tom Petty, the Eagles, like Rolling Stones. I love all of that.
Stones.
So
love the Beatles.
you were very much like immersed in that era where music was really touching people because people were having a really hard time with the war and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Can you go into that a little bit?
Well, yeah. You know, the cool thing about music then, there was a message, you know, and it wasn't, you know, there wasn't like, you know, oh, I'll say a word and then you say a word. Music, business. You know, it's like, it's automatic. You know, it's the music business. And it's like, what happened to music, you know, without business, you know? And then, you know, and then music business in its infancy was actually a pretty good idea. You'd get people like, you know, great people that knew music. I was trying to think of the guy who was at Woodstock and signed like 30 bands there, and you know, and what a great ear he had for music. And then that whole thing, like where we got these guys who really cared about music, and you know, were the CEO of Capitol Records or something, you know, and that was their life, was music. And then it turned into like, well, we'll just throw this out there, and we'll throw this out there, and we'll see if this works, and see if this sticks, and you know, and music changed, you know. And then when there wasn't, you know, when it got to that point where you know, you could download music for free, and then people were going, yeah, we can get this stuff for free. And it's like, yeah, screw all the musicians and stuff.
Yep.
You know, it doesn't matter. And I was watching this thing last night about copyright, and when Google decided to digitally copy every book in the universe. You know, they took 17 million books from Harvard University and digitally copied them. And, you know, 8 million of them were still in copyright, you know, and some of them were still in print. You know, it's like, how did they do that? You know, and when I was watching that, I'm thinking, yeah, that's what happened to music.
Yeah.
You know, all of a sudden, you know, who's going to buy music when you can listen to it for free? You know, and so the whole music thing kind of changed. And feel like I'm one of those last lucky people who actually got paid for playing music, you know, and still do. You know, it's like, I see it as very magical for myself, like that my life there's some destiny to it, you know, that I'm still in a band that came out in 1988, you know, Year of the Dragon, 1988, and before our band was even in the stores, we were #1 requested band in the world, you know, and if, you know, they say there's like 4 different types of people. There's people who don't believe in miracles. There's people who do believe in miracles. There's people who see everything as a miracle, right? Yeah. That's me. I see everything as a miracle. And then there's people who also, like me on bad days, I see everything as a miracle, but I still take back my own will sometimes, you know. I still go, oh, you know, I still worry about things and stuff like that. But then when I look back on my life, no, your whole life's been set. You know, the fact that I went and saw a band down here, what were they called? Saliva.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh.
And a great band.
Yeah, I love Saliva. Yeah.
And as big as Kingdom Come, probably sold as many records, as Kingdom Come did. And the guy says, he says, what do you guys get a night? And I said, usually about 8, He goes, 800? I go, no, 8,000. And he's going, we're getting $400 here tonight, and we packed this place, And I was like, well, that's the difference between the 80s and the 90s is the 80s still has this market for it, like bands with the long hair and, and wore leather and, had that whole thing. We still get paid, where the 90s bands that I was jealous when the 90s came out. And, and I was like, I was almost embarrassed to have been in a hair metal band, and our record company went to great lengths to, so that we wouldn't be put in the same category as Poison, or one of those kind of bands. But, you look at Hair Metal Nation and it's, Poison and then a Kingdom Come song and then a Whitesnake song. And, it's like, that's, So what was like, what seemed to be my downfall, like the 90s, geez, I'm not depressed enough, I don't have my face tattooed, or, I'm not writing depressing music and talking about my depression. I could have, and, but that whole era left me like, oh my God, I don't belong anymore, and then, 10 years later, it was like, my friend Paul Shortino does Robin the Rock Vault, and he makes more money than Celine Dion, and no one ever heard of Paul Shortino. I mean, he was a great singer. He played in some pretty big bands like Rough Cut that had record deals, but didn't really sell any records. But now he makes $1 million a week doing 80s music, for Vegas crowds. So it's
Interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Can you just slide the mic up a little bit towards you?
Yeah.
Sure.
How are the levels? Are they good?
Yeah, you were good.
Okay.
His voice is so deep.
Yeah.
What is it like for us? We started this a year ago, and we're imagining what it's going to be like when we're touring and we have people that want to come see us. We had a gentleman last night that drove 3 hours here so he could meet us and take us out to dinner.
Yeah.
Never expected that.
Right.
So when it finally popped off and they were like, all right, cool, we're traveling. We're going to be touring the world, the country, whatever it was.
Right.
What was that like? Like, what did that feel like to you?
It was kind of amazing. I'd have to say in 1988, I wasn't really like spending a lot of time in the present moment. I was a very spiritual and religious person, and I'd been an atheist for years after a weird acid trip, and then I was like an atheist for about 7 years, and then when I got to Hollywood, I got in a band that had a #1 song and some really good things. And then one of the guys I got in the band was Prescott Niles, and from the Knack. He was the bass player in the Knack, and now he plays bass for Missing Persons. And Matt Sorum from Guns N' Roses and the Cult, and was the drummer. And so I had this band, and we'd gotten some regional success. From this stuff, and then Prescott, it was weird because he was Jewish, but he said, "You have to come to this church with me," right? And it was this guy, his name was Dr. Lloyd John Ogilvie, and he'd written about 25 books, and he was pastor of the year, like time after time in the LA Weekly. He said, "You have to come and hear this guy speak, and it'll be a life-changing situation for you." And I got there, and it was a weird situation that I went, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't believe in God for 7 years, And then I got very spiritual. The whole church was behind me, prayer meetings, all this stuff, and the church became like our audience, And we were like, we didn't realize at the time that we'd written all these like prophetic songs about Armageddon and stuff, and I was just thinking, write some dark shit, and and people, we'll get all Aussies people, or you know what I mean, whatever. And it was like, so I would write songs about like Rebel in the Rubble and Love You Like There's No Tomorrow, and Stranded on the Streets of Planet Earth, and all these kind of like, And this was the early '80s, and then we were like the #1 drawing band in Los Angeles, and people were actually paying us to open for us because we had such a big crowd and stuff. So it was weird, and then so I became, I was one with this religion, and I was performing this thing, and I was hanging out with these people, and I was like being this influence, and then Kingdom Come happened, and I was also working for Diane Warren, the biggest songwriter in the world, as her producer, right? And I was like set, career-wise, I was set for the rest of my life. I was like, look, you're rubbing noses with Billy Michelle from Chrysalis Records, and she had like several record deals, and here I was like making myself a name as a producer, right? And I was like, well, didn't you come to Hollywood to be a rock star? And it was like, I don't want to sit in a studio the rest of my life and produce some girl's songs, even if she makes $2 billion, So I got an offer to join Kingdom Come. I was playing bass in a couple bands, so I got an offer to join Kingdom Come, and it was a big signing bonus and the whole deal. And then as Kingdom Come went on, you were going to ask me how I felt, and we were touring Europe, and I remember our manager kept getting on the bus and goes, "You guys are #1 this week, you guys are #1 again this week. Hey, 7 weeks in a row, you guys are #1. You guys bumped Michael Jackson out of his top spot, for #1 song of the year." And I'm in Europe, and like we're opening for some like band like they were called Magnum. They were like a heavy metal. Grateful Dead or something, I mean, these guys had beards down to their. I mean, they were like ZZ Top before ZZ Top knew who they were, and they were like grandfathers and stuff. And we were like, what are we doing in Europe, opening for Magnum? We're #1, and then we were soon like #1 all over the world, and it was like a miracle, It was like I can't believe this is happening. But like I said, I wasn't really living in the present moment.
Where were you? Like, where were you living?
Where was I?
Yeah, like where were you living in your head?
I was wrapped up in my own ego, taking care of my own addictions. I wasn't really per se a drug addict at the time, but there's a lot of things that come with being a rock star you can get addicted to. And mine was was women. And it was like, I don't need drugs. I'll just have a lot of women, and I didn't use drugs at the time because I wasn't that great a bass player, and I was like, wow, this is a hard instrument, and I noticed if I drank the night before or even did a small bump of coke that I was lacking the energy, so I was just stay away from drugs, So I, after having a pretty big drug history, never really being an addict, but heavy drinker, heavy weekend warrior, and things like that. But when that tour was happening, I was completely clean, trying to eat good food, which is hard on the road sometimes.
Yep.
I remember there's Doritos and all that stuff on the bus, and you get bored, and food becomes a thing. But yeah, it was nothing but amazing. I mean, it was like, wow, if this dream gets any better, I hope I don't wake up from it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, in every industry, so I do fitness shows, bodybuilding shows.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that you just kind of wouldn't know unless you. Oh, Kevin, change. Okay. And there's kind of certain things that you just wouldn't know unless you're kind of in that arena.
Right.
What about being a rock star, being in rooms with all these music people, producers, musicians during that era? Like, what don't most people know about it that maybe you might know that you can impart because you were in those rooms?
It's weird. I just did an interview with Paul Trunk. You know who that is, from the metal show. He's like you guys, but he's like, God, he knows everything about every band. He's like a walking, Akashic record of rock and roll.
Nice.
And the fact that turned out to be his living, and that turned out to be, it was like, that's what he loved, that's what he did, And so, what do I know about anything? No, like I say, I didn't care about other bands. You know, I wasn't a fan of anybody too much. I mean, you know what I mean? It was like I was so wrapped up in my own world. And, you know, after working with Diane Warren, and I'd say, Diane, I got a new song. She goes, I don't want to hear it. You know, I might like it. You know what I mean? It was kind of the same way with me. I want to do something original. I want to harvest, you know, I want to mine my own soul for my own music.
Interesting.
You know?
Rather than trying to innovate someone else's.
So I don't really listen to a lot of music, so I'm not a fan of music.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I'm in my intellectual side of music. I went and saw Chris Botti at the Florida Theater. You know, an amazing theater. Have you been there?
No.
It's like this antique, you know, lighting's happening, and you know, I don't know when it was built, probably over 100 years ago. Perfect acoustics and stuff like that. So, to me, music, I love jazz. Like, you know, I'm not a big classical fan, but I love jazz. I love improvisation. You know, and you know, my favorite part of metal is when the guitar player does a guitar solo. You know. And I'm also a guitarist, so you know, I work on my speed all the time, you know, and how to shred and stuff like that. So, you know, for I guess that would be my own little secret. I'm way more. I mean, I love rock and I love metal. I love all the new Norwegian black, you know, like midnight metal stuff. You know, I love that stuff. I think that's all great. I've always, you know, kind of tried to stay on the edge of new music, you know, and write it myself, you know. But I think there's a point where you just kind of grab onto, you know, there is, you know, like there is a certain stuff that I would write, and you go, oh, that sounds like a J.B. Frank song, you know. So, you know, and gonna do a lot of recording this year, and you know, got some new material gonna do, and you know, feels really good to be in this place.
So for those listening, at the end, JB said he brought his guitar. He said he'll play a little something. So I'm really looking forward to that, because during the preamble you were strumming away a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's something. We podcasted with a Muay Thai fighter, and we podcasted with him, and the second he put on his gloves, he's a different person.
Right.
That's his arena.
Yeah.
That's where he's
Yeah.
comfortable. And
Yeah.
watching you do that, you were like closing your eyes, and you could just tell you were somewhere else.
Yeah.
You just tell you were somewhere else. So I'm very much looking forward. Watching people perform their music and their passion has always blown me away.
Yeah.
So, and I've never seen behind the curtain. So I'm very much
Yeah.
looking forward to that. Earlier, you said that as a child, you were setting up traps and you would hunt a lot.
Yeah.
And you said you think that might have been to impress your father.
Well, yeah, I wanted to show my father was an ambitious person. You know, he respected ambition, and you know, he's kind of a workaholic himself. You know, and so I worked extra hard. I think as a kid, you know, as a you know, not in school particularly, but I had a lawn mowing route. I had a band. You know, we played on Friday and Saturday nights. Friday nights at the Methodist Teen Center. Saturday nights at the Catholic Teen Center.
closer.
Yeah, and you know, so I was making money. I had a bank account. You know, I had a lawn mowing route. You know, and I had a trapping route. You know, where I'd go out and trap in the morning, and you know, if I'd catch a muskrat or a rabbit or something, and I would go back and pelt it and salt the pelt and put it, you know, nail it to a board and then sell it for $3 to some fur guy. You know? I was like, and now I'm making, you know, I was a vegan for 33 years. I was making a living amends to all animals, you know, and it was weird. And then about 5 or 6 months ago, I started eating meat again, and it was just in time for this tour. Because you know, I started getting into like ketosis, and I was like, man, you can't find enough vegetables to keep you in ketosis. You know, I mean, what are you going to eat avocados all day long every day?
Right, when
You
you're
know?
traveling. Yeah.
And they can get kind of boring. So it was weird, and I started eating meat again, and I felt a little weird about it when I first started doing it. But you know, I think that, you know, you probably know a lot about nutrition and stuff too, but I think we need, there's some certain things about nutrition. We don't get enough salt, and doctors go, oh, we need salt-restricted diets, which is almost a genocide. When we don't get enough salt, we don't make enough acid in our stomach. And then this country will prescribe for you Prilosec, an antacid. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Who would not have enough acid? It's like they're saying, oh, you have too much acid. Who would have too much acid in their stomach? Like 1 out of 1 million people would have too much acid. But that's what they do. They treat you like that. And then where's your macro and micronutrients then, right? You can't break down your food with the acid, right? So all of a sudden you're starving to death. You start gaining weight because you need to eat more than more people, because you're not getting nutrition from your food. And it's so when I started, I don't think we get enough fat in our diet, and we don't think we get enough salt in our diet. And I think, that you could cure cancer if you had enough vitamin D, which is sunshine, and if you had iodine every day. And these are things you don't, and you can supplement both of those things, And, diabetes, all these diseases and stuff, they're mineral deficiencies, And it's like, okay, you have insulin resistance. Well, what do we do in this country? We'll give you more insulin. You know what I mean? But you're already insulin resistant. We could give you a vanadium, like a mineral, right? That would actually do the same thing as the insulin, except that it would take away your insulin resistance. If your stomach has sensors in it, right, to check to see if you have enough acid in your stomach to digest your food, and then if your acid is like above on a pH scale above 2, then your sphincter in the top of this part of your digestive system is open, and it lets that acid back into your throat, which is acid reflux and stuff. Now, what you needed to do was make your stomach more acidic, right? Like by taking some hydrochloric acid in a tablet form, and then and that would make more sense. Now you're digesting your food, you're getting the micronutrients out of your food, and your sphincter is closing up because the sensors in your stomach are going, yeah, we have a proper amount of acid in our stomach now, so it closes up tight. And so the whole medical thing and everything's so backwards in this country, and so I think it's really hard to discern the spirits, especially of diet and nutrition. And so what I found was, for me, was this ketosis thing really worked out well. I don't like eating when I get out of bed anyway, And what I usually do is I'll take a big glass of water, put some salt in it, some Himalayan salt, and I'll put some minerals in it, and I'll drink that in the morning. Take some amino acids and stuff like that, and then I'll go as long as I can without eating. I'll go 3 to 6, sometimes 7 hours, and then when I do eat, right at that point, I'm in a place where I can actually reprogram my palate. Like if I didn't like carrots or broccoli or something like that before, now I'm starving.
Now you'll eat it.
I've been up for 7 hours and I haven't eaten. Carrots starting to look.
Oh yeah,
we
had some yesterday with some hummus. We'll get some after this.
Pretty good. Yeah, so you can retrain your palate if you think, the only thing that actually satisfies me is like, a cheeseburger from Whataburger, or and a box of chocolate chips, cookies from Publix.
You're not hungry enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then these things have all these chemicals and stuff your body doesn't even know what to do with. Your body can't even break that down. Yet they're addicting. And then so people were like, okay, how come I can eat a potato and a carrot and I don't feel satisfied? Because your body's addicted to all those processed food, things that do different things in your body, and your body's then gets used to storing fat cells to protect you. Obesity is like a necessity in this country now. I mean, because we put so many toxins. It's not because of food, it's because we're eating toxic foods, and the only thing our body knows to do is we'll store this in fat cells till we can figure it out, And then it's like, okay, well, we'll get rid of these fat cells, and we'll starve ourselves, and go on these restricted diets and start exercising more, and stuff like that. And then you end up processing the poisons anyway, when you fast.
When
so,
you're fat, cells
yeah,
burn. Yeah.
pay now or pay later. You
Yeah.
know, so.
Got to eat clean. So
Yeah.
when you're on the road, we talked about this. It was really hard to like have a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
When you were on the road, I have two questions. The first one is when you were on the road on tour, when you did join Kingdom Come and you guys had all that success, you did global tours.
Yeah.
Was it really hard to stay healthy in those environments? And then what was different between then and then when you latest tour?
I mean, flying on a plane
Yeah.
is like, really hard on people.
Yeah.
You notice a lot of people who fly all the time have a lot of health problems, health issues. For one thing, you're out of the range of Mother Earth, where you're going to get those pulse electromagnetic frequencies. You're going to get more radiation up there. I like living on the first floor. I like walking on the beach in my bare feet. I use a beamer. I use a PMF generator in the morning when I get up, and I took it on tour with me. So yeah, it's really hard to get enough sleep. You're singing every night, so your throat's bothering you sometimes, and so you've got all those things. Sometimes it's too cold, you're changing planes in Chicago, and you have on your clothes from California.
For all the listeners right now, like a lot of people would consider a rock star to be like the greatest dream in the world, and it is, but like there's so much more to it than people ever realize.
Yeah.
Like everything you just described is like some of the downsides of having to go on tour. Like that would be what other people consider a dream
You don't think
come
about
true,
it.
but you don't think
You
about
only think about the final
Yeah.
you only
Yeah.
think about the top of the mountain. You don't think
Yeah.
about what you have to do to get up there and then
But
stay
it's
up there.
worth it.
Yeah, it is worth
Yeah,
it.
that-
It
that's what
absolutely
matters.
It is worth it. I mean, to a musician, where one of the greatest feelings in my life is to get and play music, and to play music with a really good band, and brothers in this band that you actually have some kind of cosmic music connection with, and there's, to me, that's one of the greatest feelings in the world, and then when you're doing it for an audience, and you can see in their eyes they're lighting up. I mean, I was kind of the spiritual leader of my band, is what they called me, right? And I would lead the band in prayer every night before we go, and I go, this isn't about us. This is about this guy out in the audience really needs a rock show tonight. This girl over here, her sister committed suicide 2 weeks ago. She really needs a rock show tonight.
I love that.
Yeah, it's about that. And we played in A 432 hertz, right? That means we went back to the divine frequency, right? Which the Pythagorean scale, right? And in the 30s, the early Nazi party, the Goebbels, right, and the Illuminati, which would be the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, right? They forced all the music institutes and all the music makers of Europe in the 30s to change from A432, which had been the frequency for music for 2,500 years, right? And they after weapons testing proved that if we can just change music by 8 hertz, we can cause mass hysteria, right? We can make the rise of the Nazi party happen. We can make this mass hysteria happen. So they changed the music. Now, if you study cymatics, right? That is the study of vibration and how notes have a musical influence. Like if I took this coffee right now and we took the top off it, right? Okay, and we put a guitar amplifier on it and put this on top of a speaker. Now we hit one note, and you look in there, and the coffee's making a pattern. You can see a pattern, and we hit another note, and another pattern appears. Then we hit that same note again, and the first pattern repeats itself.
That's happening in the air. Yeah.
So these patterns, now in 432 hertz, you'll notice that the patterns are more intricate. Right, they're more like sacred geometry and stuff. And in A440, you'll see patterns, repeatable patterns, but they're not geometric. They're not symmetrical. Right. We were playing. This lady said to me, she goes, she goes, I've never seen this before, but I was watching you guys, and I looked down, I had a little plastic cup of beer, and I looked in it, and I saw this like flower of life type geometry in my beer, and I didn't understand it. And I go, that's because we play in A432, like Led Zeppelin did, like Jimi Hendrix did, like the Beatles did. You know, people were aware of this, how important it was. And you know, like for the last couple of years, I've worked in recovery, right, as a musical therapist, right, and a frequency healer, and you know, there's so much. We were talking before the interview here about what's behind, you know, what's behind everything. What are the thoughts behind everything, right? And so a person that's just getting off drugs, right, they're having a lot of bad thinking, right, because the amazing human animal, right, can think its way into stress. You know, we have an imagination like most animals don't, right? So where a deer can be chased by a bunch of coyotes and he outruns them, he's outrun this pack of coyotes, whatever it is, a herd of coyotes, and then it goes back to eating. You know, we can get back to eating. Right? Now the human could go, yeah, maybe those coyotes will be there tomorrow. You know, like can think its way into stress. You know, or it can think its way into happiness. You know, if this is my normal position for depression, right? I'm sitting here like in this weird, my back's hunched over, I'm rubbing my head because I'm leaking energy out of my third eye here, whatever it is. And this is my happy look right here, right? Like if everything's set, you know, I got some money coming in and, you know, everything's really good, I'd be like this. You know what I mean? So if I was like this and feeling depressed and I wanted to feel better, why don't I just do this? Why don't I sit in a different position? Why don't I sit in my happy position? You know, it's like the universal law of reversibility, right? If I went, woo-hoo, like that right now, like I just won the lottery, then everything in my body's going, oh my God, something must be happening that's good here. You know,
I love it.
I think I'll move from my reptilian brain here, where it's about fight or flight, the atomic nervous system, where it's fight or flight. You know, like everything can set that off. You know, like a dog barking. You know, all of a sudden you're on their way into the doctor's office, right? And a dog barks at you and it scares the hell out of you, right? And then the doctor says, "Wow, your blood pressure's high. You know, your blood sugar's high and your cholesterol's high." Yeah, a dog just barked. So it put my body in this fight or flight thing. And then people start living in that fight or flight, you know, and it's a biologically unsustainable place to live.
Yeah.
You can't live like that.
Yep.
You can't live in constant fear and fight or flight. You know, you'll get sick. You'll become an addict.
Yeah, your immune system will be hurt. Yep.
So we need these, you know, what I would teach these people is like I would come in there, I'd bring these bowls, these Tibetan singing bowls, you know, 18-inch singing bowls, and I would just, you know, guide them into a meditation, to a place where they're not thinking about anything, and if they're thinking about something, they're dismissing it, they're just letting things come and go, right? And then I'll play a song for them. I'll usually play an original song. Most of my songs that I've written in the last 12 years are very spiritual and very, what'd you call this?
Hyper-conscious.
Hyper-conscious.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that.
Appreciate
That's an
that.
awesome way that's an awesome thing to you know, to go after.
Raising awareness.
Hyper-conscious, yeah.
Yeah.
So if I can play a song, right, and then some of my clients would go, God, I wish this was a 2-hour class. And I'm going, wow, that's the greatest thing you could have said to me. That time was just slipping by. And you're an addict. You just got off drugs 2 weeks ago, right? So every cell in your body's going, where's the drugs, man? We made receptors for the drugs, right? And now we've been off the drugs for 2 weeks. Guess what we've been making a receptor for the last 2 weeks? Unbelievable stress, right? And thinking our way into, oh my God, what did I do to my life? Oh, my wife left me, my kids are left me. I'm gonna owe child support. You know, I owe this company money. I'm probably gonna have to do do 2 weeks in jail for the robbery I did over here. You know, how am I going to take care of myself the rest of my life? And you're just, you know, your thought process is just a mess. You know,
Yeah.
it's chaotic and stuff like that. And it's the opposite of being clear. Now, if I can teach people how to be clear, if I can teach people how to memorize their elevated emotions, like, okay, now they're having a good time in here, right? Okay, so now you're going to make a receptor for your elevated emotions, being happy and stuff like that. Now, guess what your thought process is going to do? Your thought process is going to change because now you've made receptors for this incredible life, right? So now you're thinking on a higher plane, right? I love the word explain, right? So when we explain, right? Like if I want to explain something to someone who doesn't understand it, who doesn't have a deeper understanding of that, doesn't have knowledge of it, you know, like you know about working out and stuff like that. So obviously someone's going to come up to you and they're going to get in a heated conversation with you. No, this is not true. No, you know better. Like you got muscles. This,
thank
this
you.
stuff does. This stuff worked. Look, I don't have, you know.
Yeah.
You know. So to get a deeper understanding of that stuff, if I come in there and I'm happy, right? How did that guy do that? How did he become happy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he fixed his life. He went after the things that make him happy, you know. And then he made a receptor for those elevated emotions in his life, right? And now he doesn't have a whole lot of room for that pessimism, that boredom, all those things that are below the line, you know. And there's a million of them, you know, just sadness. Can you believe they came out with a disease called SAD, right? It's social anxiety disorder. You know?
No kidding.
Yeah. Who doesn't have that?
Yeah, right.
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Who hasn't
Now
at
you
one
need a
point?
drug.
Yeah. Who hasn't at one point been sad? Yeah.
So instead, you know, we practice principles. We practice spiritual principles, and there's a bunch of them. And my favorite one is courage, because no matter what you do in life, it takes courage. This took courage.
For sure.
You guys didn't know what you were going to do. You didn't know if this was going to pay you or, you know, but it doesn't matter. You're doing what you love. You're going to get paid for it too. You know, you will attract, you know, everything to your life. So that's, you know, with being a rock star, I can't help but think every time I pick up the guitar, my thought process is, I'm doing this for 100,000 people in front of an audience. Now I'm going to play a lead. Yeah, and as soon as I start playing this lead and when I'm done with it, people are going to scream and stuff like that. So how could I not have attracted being a rock star to myself when that's all I've thought about since I was 4 years old?
Power of your thoughts, right
Yep.
there. Thank you for going there. That is.
Yeah.
That was amazing. That whole thing was amazing. Yeah.
That was hyper conscious as hell. Like
yeah.
that was hyper conscious.
I was gonna say as fuck, but
How did you get? So Terrence said something. You were good friends with Nikki Sixx, or you knew Nikki Sixx.
Yeah.
I
I
actually
worked in a liquor store with him.
Nikki Sixx. He
Gil
was
Turner's
in
Liquor. Motley Crue.
Motley Crue. I listened to
London.
the Heroin Diaries, the album he dropped 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
That was so. The whole thing is about heroin and what it does to you, and him coming off of heroin, and it was mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
You don't understand somebody's mindset. You don't understand how low somebody's been until they like come out and tell you.
Yeah.
What attracted you to doing the therapy, to going into playing music for people in therapy? Like, why did you do that?
Because it interested me. You know, I mean, I used to play, play at Candlestick Park, and there's 85,000 people there, and I go, why are these people here? You know, what is it that they came for today? That they had to sit in a car for 4 hours to get here? That they had to pay $85 for a ticket? You know, and you know they're way up in the nosebleed seats. You know, what was that? You know, why are they here? You know, and there is. You know, there is such a release. I mean, to hear music and to hear it loud, you know, and to hear those emotions put in it. I mean, it's like, you know, it's an amazing thing. I mean, it's like, you know, why do people like roller coasters? You know.
plus you got to figure like with that many people in the same area, all the vibrations together, plus the music, plus the loud frequencies. I mean, it's a different experience. It's like going to a football game versus watching a football game. It's different.
You feel connected.
Right? You feel connected. Yeah. So what was the answer? So for the listeners, there's so many things jumping off the page that I haven't been able to say to the listeners yet. But one of the things that just jumped off is the fact that you were curious as to why. Why did they come here? Why did they pay $85 for a ticket up in the nosebleeds? Like, what answer did you come up with? I'm sure there's several.
That's, I mean, like I kind of briefly hit on my dark years in the 80s, right? Which was, in Los Angeles was, what the rest of the world, at least cosmopolitan cities like New York and Los Angeles, they're just a little bit ahead, right? So we were experiencing the opium epidemic that the rest of the world's experiencing now. We were experiencing that in the 90s, where it was like all of a sudden if you're going to go to a cool, hip, trendy party, right, where's the Coke? Well, the Coke disappeared, but here's a little piece of foil with some heroin on it, just, smoke it up, call it chasing the dragon. And that was like all of a sudden became the scene. And like all these people are drug addicts now in Los Angeles. And the music's about drugs, all the bands are doing heroin, I would go to the methadone clinic. It was like the who's who of rock and roll, the 80s rock and roll. It's what happened, And it was just like all that music and stuff, and it was like, well, I felt justified in, in doing some heroin too. It was like, it all of a sudden seemed like the thing.
It felt normal.
Yeah, it was normal. Everybody else was doing it. People I admired were doing it. I mean, all my heroes did heroin. Miles Davis and Jimi Hendrix and, Janis Joplin. Some of the greatest musicians in the world. And when I did that, when I would do a little bit of heroin, I would think, oh yeah, music is effortless now. There is no more fear in music. I've anesthetized my fear of doing anything on heroin, and then that became a part of my life, and then it becomes a very dark part of your life, where it doesn't work anymore.
It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there's no amount of opiates after you've done it for a couple of years. There's no amount of opiates that will get you high. You can't get high anymore. You can only get back to normal. And that's a good day. And it's a really depressing lifestyle. And so how did I get from that to that? I'd say it was like a lot of suffering. And I would have to give God credit too, and angels and. When I pray in the morning, I include everybody. I pray to Jesus. I pray to the Heavenly Father. I pray to the Divine Mother. I pray to the Great Spirit. I pray to all ascended masters, Babaji, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Paramahansa Yogananda, White Buffalo Woman, and I will pray to the archangels, Michael, Metatron. I'll include this. I will pray to my dead relatives, dead rock stars, dead friends, and I'll pray to the present people too. Anybody who's on board with boosting this energy to get this. So I was seriously guided, and I was sober. After a 7-year run on heroin, on January 1st, the year 2000, I said I will never touch drugs again. And I stayed clean for 3 years, and then my stomach was really messed up, and I thought, you know what, my problem was heroin, right? So I'm gonna have a beer or a glass of wine or something. And the next thing I knew, I was like buying 2 8-balls of Coke, right, and going on the internet and figure out how to turn it into crack, right, and that became my life for 4.5 years. I met in AA. I met this woman. And she said, you should live with my family in Malibu, and I said, that's great. I'm living in this apartment in Los Angeles that Dee Dee Ramone actually OD'd in, and I'm like, I'll stay here forever. But they kept raising the rent on me. I'm paying $2,200 for a 1-bedroom apartment, right in the heart of Hollywood. So now I moved to Malibu. I found about all these AA people. That there was this great AA meeting, and they said that we're going to do ayahuasca, right? And you have to have 10 years of sobriety to be in this group, right? But we've got a shaman coming in to do this. We're going to do this ayahuasca thing, right? And it's going to be available like 5 times over the next 6 months. So I said, I'm in. They said, do you have 10 years? And I go, yeah, I lied. And I had about 5 years at the time. And I said, yeah. And so I wanted to do this ayahuasca, right? And I'd had 3 years, and then I was trying to get off crack cocaine, right? Which I was spending tons of money on. I did this ayahuasca after I did. I was up for 6 days. It was my birthday, and I'd had some money, and I just went on this crazy crack cocaine binge, right, for 6 days. And someone said, "Would you like to do some DMT, MEO5 DMT, which is ayahuasca, right, in a chemical form?" I said, yeah. So I went with these people and did that. And as I took the hit off this crazy bong with argon gas with the bottom came out of, and you took this hit, and it was like the scientist shaman guy had made this bong, right? So you didn't have to try to get 3 hits of it or inject this stuff. And then I felt like, I feel like I'm going under anesthesia. Okay, I can't control this anymore. They said within 3 seconds I was going to be out of it, right? And about 10 seconds later, I'm losing it. And then I was gone, right? I had lost consciousness. Now where I found myself was experiencing myself as a pure energy field, right? I was light and I was sound, and it was very bright. I was as bright as a billion suns, and I was the sound of about 150 jet airliners. If they'd all backed up and make that, I mean, decibels were just ridiculous. So I was light and sound. And I realized that my energy field was missing some light. There was parts of me that were shadows, right? And I wasn't in tune to the Great Spirit, right? That Great Spirit of divine frequency, right? So I had to tune myself to this giant sound. It was overwhelmingly loud, right? But I had to tune myself to it, right? I had to fine-tune myself. And then as I was doing that, I noticed that my body became pure light. The shadows had gone away. And then I came back into the world, and I was coming back in the world. I noticed that everything was made out of this energy field. That if I was watching you, you were this energy field. And I go, oh my God, this energy. And then all of a sudden you became you. It was like I watched you turn from an energy field into a physical being, right? And I realized everything in life is this energy field. Even these things that we say are dead are an energy field
And
vibrating.
they're moving. They're vibrating, yeah.
So this changed my whole perception of everything. This was 12 years ago. And I said...
For the listeners, that's quantum physics right there, by the way, if
Yeah.
you want to dive deep into the science. Keep going.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
And I,
So
I
12 years
said,
ago.
I knew at that point that I could never do drugs again, right? And crack cocaine was... for me, was a very strange drug because I would do it like for sometimes six days in a row, and then I would fall asleep between hits. But I was seeing things in other dimensions. There was a parallel kingdom, you know, to the whole thing. And then that became really noticeable to me. Now what this guy, the shaman, called this was toad, right? Because it was the same drug you were taking if you licked a Rocky Mountain toad. Right, it was called DMT MEO5, right? But he had synthesized it through ayahuasca and bumbleweed and DMTs and everything. And then I said to myself, I'll no longer do drugs. It took me a while to, you know, procrastinate and finally say I'm not going to do this anymore, right? And then my whole life changed in an instant. It was like, oh my God. I no longer, you know, here I'm a professional songwriter. I've written 100 songs that have been on movies and, you know, been on other people's albums, and some have sold up to 4 million copies. And all of a sudden, in the last 12 years, I haven't written a song that wasn't due to this trip I took. This toad, Temple of Authentic Divinity. That's what if they broke that down, TOAD. Temple of Authentic Awakened Divinity, right? Where I actually experienced, you know, if someone wants to tell me what God is, that's fine. How did you come to that, right? Well, that's what my pastor told me, you know. So most people are just regurgitating or parroting, you know, a belief system that was somebody else's, right? My belief system became my own at that point.
Knowledge versus experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd been there. You know, if you want a deeper understanding of stuff, you have to know something. You know what I mean? Like, you know this things, you know these things, so you have a deeper understanding of it. Like, Paul Trung, he knows everything about rock and roll. You know what I mean? It's like, so he's got this deeper understanding. When he talks to somebody, he knows what he's talking about.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So, so to now all of a sudden have this deeper understanding of what is behind everything, you know, that's behind everything is light and sound, right? And you'll see it all through the Bible, right? As I will reveal myself to you in a vision, light, right? I will speak to you, sound, in a dream. Now, I believe we were non-physical beings at one time. We were angels. We were pre-Hyperborean, the first race on this planet to live. We weren't real beings. We were energy beings, right? We were non-physical beings, right? And then we said, well, as a non-physical being, we're aware of sound and light, right? What about touch? What about taste? What about smell? How come we don't have those things? We don't even know what they are because we can't experience them. So, but if we can manifest ourselves into a physical being, right, then we will have these things. We'll have sex, you know. We'll have the PEMFs. We'll be able to know what touch is, you know. We'll be add this whole other dimension. We'll be able to know what thought is. Our sixth sense.
Infinite
right?
intelligence.
It's thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it becomes a sixth sense. You know, the Eye of Horus, right? It's drawn with 6 lines to depict the 6 senses, right? And they were like, well, what is the 6th sense? And they were like, oh, it's psychic this. And no, it's just being aware of your thoughts, right? Most people can't be aware or consciously aware or hyper-consciously aware of their thoughts because they're so identified with their thoughts that's who they believe they are.
Yeah.
Right? And this girl asked me, after we had done the ayahuasca, she goes, can you just become the awareness of your thoughts? I go, I don't know what that means, you know. She goes, try it. She goes, sit back. And then the great teaching, Eckhart Tolle, he said, okay, most people don't even know how to be in the present moment, don't know how to enter Zen, you know. It's like, and the Zen master said, can you hear the mountain stream? And the kid says, I think I can hear it, right? Well, it was just being hyper conscious that there might be a mountain stream. Now he's listening for it, right? He's entered Zen because he's like, now Eckhart Tolle talks about becoming a cat, right? And okay, if I'm becoming a cat and I'm a cat watching a mouse hole, now if the mouse appears, that's like my next thought, right? If I'm the cat and that's like I'm waiting here like a cat to pounce on my next thought, right? Guess what? My next thought doesn't come because I'm entered the present moment where there is no thought. You know, and then when I do think, I'm still in the present moment because I'm the awareness of my thoughts. And people go, well, if I'm not my thinking, if I'm not my feelings, if I'm not my actions, then who am I, right? Well, who I am now is the awareness of that. What I want to become is the awareness of that, right? I want the neuroplasticity to be the observer of who I am.
You just described transcendence.
Yeah.
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 Transcending self.
So now I'm moving. Now, if I can, you know, if the gateway to spirituality and the spiritual world and consciousness is my mind, and it's not through my mind, it's by shutting my mind off, you know, and going beyond my mind, transcendence, you know, transformation, beyond form, you know. I've gone beyond form.
You're blowing my mind
Right?
right now. This is unbelievable.
Blowing me away. You seem, from the second I've met you, and I felt very pulled to you. I feel a very strong connection to you. Ever since you walked in, I did. I don't know why. I don't know what it is, but it's your energy, I think. You have a very positive energy, and you seem like probably the most grateful person I've ever met in my entire life. You genuinely seem like you're just grateful that you're here and that you get the opportunity.
I'm 66 years old.
I can feel that. And I want you to know that. I can feel that.
I mean, I've cheated death many times, you know. And I think the only reason I have is because I was meant to come into this hyper-consciousness, right? That was part of me. I'm going, damn, why did it take so long? You know, how come when people ask me about 1988, I really don't have anything to say about it? I wasn't there. You know? I was experiencing things through my thoughts, through my egos, through my fears, through my wants, through my, you know, I just wasn't. I wasn't a hyper-conscious being.
It took me 28 years. That hyper-conscious, I was living in New Hampshire by myself, and I was thinking to myself, nothing is ever going to change unless I change my thoughts. I'm depressed. I'm suicidal. I never feel like I'm enough. I've never felt good enough. I don't feel smart enough. I don't feel competent enough. And it'll never change unless I do something.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, there has to be more than what I'm thinking. There has to be a better way.
Yeah.
And then that's what had happened.
Beyond thought, yeah.
And then he was the first person I interviewed,
Yeah.
and he got me. You know what I mean? Like, he got me. Like, we
Yeah.
get you. We understand exactly what you're trying to say. And then ever since then, it's just been like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
let's try to help everybody figure what you figured out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That there's more than just, I'm afraid of this, so I'm not going to do it.
Start exploring it. Start exploring the idea of it. Start
Yeah.
learning. Start diving deeper into your thoughts and why they're there, and learning about Eckhart Tolle and
Yeah.
the power of now, and learning all these different books. Like, there's more
how
to
you
this
get that
world than
understanding.
this shiny object stuff that's in
Yeah.
front of you. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you, and that was awesome, Kevin.
Yeah, I felt it. I got to pee. Are you dying?
I know, right? Excuse
gonna
me. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, what was it like to be in that dark place? You mentioned, I have a bunch of notes here. You mentioned your dark years of the 80s. What was it like to be perceived as what everyone desired, or living the dream, when internally you were really suffering? Because I can relate to that very strongly.
Well, it's weird because other people could see my worth, but I couldn't. You know, I couldn't see any value in myself. You know, I was focusing on the wrong things. That's what I love about the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. On page 418, there's the doctor who he would shoot up methamphetamine, and then he would take tranquilizers, right? And his message, why he got in that book, was that what he focused on expanded. You know, whatever he focused on expand. Neuroplasticity. All religions talk about that. You know, like, you know, I become comfortable. I make neural pathways for the things I do the most.
Exactly,
right?
and the things I think about the most.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think about. So, you know, and I was kind of a one thing. You know, I was very religious and really loved the Bible and stuff. And then there was times I didn't get it at all. You know, and the ego is not meant to interpret the Bible. You know, the ascended master can guide you into the Bible, but the only way you can really check out the Bible is to enter Zen, is to enter a hyperconscious state, and then read the Bible from that place of watching the mouse hole. Right?
Being curious.
I don't need to add anything to this. I just need to be still and know God, right? So when I see a thing like, for those who have, more will be given, right? This is a Bible, right? For those who have, more will be given. For those who have little, even that be taken. Right? I go, that doesn't sound fair, right? Because if you're living in a material world, it's not fair, right? Like, to those who have money, more will be given. To those who have little money, even that be taken. Whoa, who made that rule? You know, but you start plugging principles into that, right? To those who have gratitude, more will be given. I want more things to be grateful for. So if I can go, okay, if I can stop looking at myself and going, well, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? No, but you know what? Look what I have to be grateful for. I'm going to be grateful. So those who have gratitude, right, more will be given. To those who have little gratitude, even that be taken, right? So if I don't find something to be grateful for, if I'm waiting for something to be grateful for, it might not happen.
Yeah, you might wait
but
forever.
if I find something to be grateful for, right, and find it over and over, then I'll have more to be grateful. Right? That guy who can't find anything to be grateful for, he becomes an ingrate. He can't be grateful for anything. For those who have honesty, more will be given. For those who have little honesty, even that be taken. Right? Guess that guy, if he's lying all the time, right, like a drug addict will often do, you know, and that becomes a part of his life, he becomes a pathological liar, right? When the truth will do, he'll still lie because he's addicted to the you know.
You work in recovery. You help people, you know, come from their darkest places and rise from that. That's what this podcast is. We're trying to help people in the darkest places see the light.
Yeah.
right? And whatever that light is for them, whether it's, spirituality or science or hyperconsciousness or betterment or personal development or fitness, right? Whatever it is. So for you, what you've experienced some of the darkest places, and it's like you've been there where they are. So then, and you went through that transformation. You now got through it, and you're continuing on that journey. So I guess what keeps you motivated today to keep helping those people?
Well, okay, so if I want to be happy, right, then I'll just be happy, right? If I believe it's going to take a woman and a car and a career to be happy, and I don't have those things, I'm not going to be happy, right? But when I realize happiness is an inside job, right? It's like I said, this is my depressed and this is my happy, right? If I sit like this, right, then all of a sudden I become happy. It's like, well, how did I do that? How did I alchemically change from a sad person to a happy person, right? I have that power. We're humans, human as a divine being, I'm a human, but I have way more power than all the other animals on the planet. I have an imagination, right? And if my imagination can make me sick, if my imagination can make me a drug addict, if my imagination can do this, it can also make me a rock star, right? It can also make me happy. It can also bring me a mate in life, bring me a job, a career, whatever. It can bring me a new song,
You're blowing me away.
Yeah.
You're blowing me away.
I have another question. I'm hammering you with a lot here real quick.
In life, I mean, I've seen people become better looking, because they focused on. They were like, you know what? I always hated the way I looked, right? Right. I'm gonna start being grateful for what I got, right? And all of a sudden,
yeah, they embody something attractive.
It was like, what happened to you? You didn't used to be this good looking. Well, all of a sudden, now you're better looking. Well, it was because I started being grateful for what I had.
And grateful for my health, taking better care of myself, and then just your energy in general.
Gratitude's the bomb.
Yeah, man.
There it is.
From a rock star. There it is.
There it is.
Gratitude's the bomb.
It really
You heard
is.
it here first.
Yeah.
We're coming up on the clock.
Oh, we are. And happiness is an inside job. Okay, so I had two questions. Okay. So one of them is vices versus virtues. So I had an alcohol addiction for sure for a very long time. I grew up around it a lot. I don't want to dive too deep into that, but I feel like I used to be living some of my vices, and now I feel like I really am living my virtues, other than maybe caffeine, because my goodness. But what can you say to our listeners about people out there who are maybe living some vices because everybody is, or maybe the environment they're in is like doing that, versus the virtues, the principles that you just described, like the gratitude is a virtue. Drugs might be a vice. So what can you impart?
Well, I think it's a shift of your belief system. Like if you believe that the only way you're going to be happy is to have this, say, I gotta have the, this woman, right? Guess what? You'll never be happy, right? And like, if you're looking for her to complete you, it's not going to happen, right? If you're looking for
then you're dependent.
The car or whatever to completely. Now, these things can make you happy, right? But the shift is knowing that we are the alchemist, right? That we are capable of producing our own life, our own success, all these things with a shift in mind and heart, and it's just I'd say that I guess that's the most important thing is check what you believe, check what your belief system is, and change it if it's not working for you.
Yeah, if what you believe is not working, get fed up and say, I can't live like this anymore. Let's shift my belief.
Or the universe or God will show you,
something will happen.
This isn't going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I still believe that, I need sex, So it's like, and then I'm having sex and it's like, God, this is fun. I really needed this, Well, did I really need it? Or was it just a mental construct that I was like, well, yeah, all my friends are having sex. I should be having sex too, you know. And
Yeah, we've all been there.
did it make me happy?
Yeah.
It may have.
Momentarily, I
Yeah.
suppose, yeah.
Did it become like possibly the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life too? I mean, yeah, I meet this girl, fall in love, and all of a sudden, you know, I mean, this just happened to me, and is, you know, been sitting in Jacksonville for 2.5 years, right, on this site called Bumble.
Slide this closer.
Yeah, called Bumble. Right?
Oh,
In
yeah.
2.5 years, one girl contacted me here, and she showed up at my house on the beach over here at 2 a.m. She said she'd be there at 9. She got there about 5 hours late. Right? and then she spends the night, have a great night, right? And she's beautiful. I'm thinking, oh, I want a relationship with this woman, right? She doesn't want anything to do with me ever again, right? I'm like, I don't know why. Whatever, you know? And I noticed she was going out with Kid Rock or something. I was like, okay, well, I'm not as big a rock star as Kid Rock. Right? It's a rock star thing, right? So 2.5 years, one girl. So now I'm traveling across the country. I'm driving to Los Angeles. So I guess it's got a location thing on it. So now every city I go to, I'm like, dating site. As soon as I get to Los Angeles, like 15 women want to meet me. I'm like crazy. I like, okay, well, go out this one. Took this one girl to a really nice party with all my old friends and stuff. That didn't work out. Well, here's my number 2. And I went out. So I meet her, and I fall madly in love with her, like right away, because that's what I believe is real life, you know, that new love, you know. I mean, this is my own belief system that it's proven to work to a degree, right? Okay, so turns out this lady is the craziest woman I've ever met in my life. I've never met such a bad narcissist in my life, right? She's a mean and cruel person, but I can't see it. All I'm seeing is the beauty, the $7 million house, you know, the promises of making my movie, all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm down with this. You know, about 6 weeks later, right, when you're in a band, they pay $75 for a meet and greet, right? So it's about 50% females usually. And all they want is spend some time with the band, get an autograph, and get a picture. So, and then they put it on Facebook. So all of a sudden I'm with this girl, I'm back in Los Angeles, and we're planning out a life together. This is great. And some girl posts on Facebook a picture of the two of us, right? This girl starts punching me in the face, right? She's only 90 pounds, so it didn't hurt that bad. But she breaks my nose, gives me a black eye, then hits me over the head with a guitar, and then hits me with an ice chest. I was like, you know, all this because this girl, I thought this girl's going to fix everything that's wrong with me, right? I'm like, something about her is like fixing everything about me. I like being with her, right? Turns out it's one of the worst things that ever happened to me, right? I'm like walking around with a concussion and, you know, black eye and a broken nose, right? Lost 2 guitars, a computer, all this stuff. I mean, you know, going out there thinking this is going to be the answer to all my problems. So it's not that I can't be deceived, you know, but what deceived me? My own belief system that I needed a woman, right? And I needed this woman, right? And she looked like the perfect woman, and it was like, I'm set for the rest of my life with this woman. But look what ended up happening, you know?
My goodness.
It was like, you know. So you never know what's going to be good for you, what's going to be bad for you. And, you know, what is going to bring that shift about in you is, to me, is to work on yourself.
Personal development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meditation, prayer and meditation, you know. Spend some time, you know, the mind makes a horrible master, but a great servant.
Yes.
Right? Put it in that perspective, you know, where it's like, I'm not going to let the mind push me around, or I'm not going to follow it around anymore. I'm going to realize it just does what it does, you know, and I'm just going to observe it without adding anything to it or any judgment to it, and go, okay, the next time this happens, go, okay, remember last time? You know, remember what happened last time? Okay, so my belief system's changing because I'm going, you know, what I really needed, what I thought I needed was more love. You know, what I needed was, you know, more affection, more touch, whatever, more money, more whatever. You know, what I really needed was to know how to be happy, right? Was to know that this love is within me, and this love is a source of love. And if I was in love with this woman, she was making me feel closer to this source, right? She's gone. There's no reason I need her. I don't need a priest to talk to God, you know. I don't need a woman to make me feel close to the source of God, you know. I just need to make a conscious contact with God.
So you said you changed, all you have to do is change your belief system. And there's a question that I've asked every guest thus far, and I think that you will have one of the more interesting perspectives because your belief system, you wanted to be a rock star, and you were a rock star. You were in one of the most successful bands. You traveled all over the place. So 30 years ago, if I said to you, what do you want to accomplish before you die, I'm sure that would have been it. But now what is it?
What it is now?
What it is
I
now.
want to be an old rock star.
Okay.
I mean, you know, and my whole last 12 years of sobriety, right, has been nothing but that, right? I'm thinking, keep your hair long, keep your weight down, you know, keep your energy up, and keep your chops up on guitar and bass.
Hell yeah.
Love it.
And be ready, you know, be ready for this. And when you get to go out there and do interviews, and you get to go out and do this and that and stuff like that, bring the higher self.
You're a rock star up here, too. I want you to know that.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Love
I
it.
am, man. I you know, and you know, and the fact that I was like, I never thought for a second that this wouldn't happen again, right? Just keep yourself together, you know. And what's really weird, okay, I turned 66 this year, right? We did our 30th reunion, right? And my numerology number, if you add up my birthday, it adds up to 33. That makes me a master number 33 numerologist.
Is that why you said 333?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, guess the girl's house that I met was 33333 Pacific Coast Highway.
Interesting.
And I thought, this is it, right? So all these numbers were lining up. 66, 18, right? My birthday is the 18th of July, right? So 18 is 3 6s, right? This year is 2018, right? So I was like, this is the year it's going to happen. I knew that. And then when the rehab closed, right? And I was like, oh, well, I'm going to miss this job because I really like helping people and stuff like that. Okay, a couple of days later, yeah, we got the tour booked. Okay, so that's okay. My dog died, right? I was like, my poor dog. I've had him for 15 years. I love this dog, right? But if he hadn't died, I'd had to put him in a kennel or something for 2.5 months. You know, and he probably would have died of loneliness. So all these things that are like, you don't know whether they're good or bad, you know, but my mindset was to attract this. I didn't come here to work in rehab. I didn't come here to teach music. I came here to keep myself healthy and keep myself spiritual and keep my chops up on guitar. You know.
My goodness.
I know, right?
So, you know, and people say, how do you make it? How do you make it? I said, get ready to make it. When you're really ready, you've already made it.
Oh, wow,
You
that's
know?
good.
It's like
Wow, that's
gratefulness, right?
When you're really
It's
ready, you've already
it's
made
the
it.
ultimate form of receivership is to say I'm grateful for something. If
Mm.
I say I want something, God only has one answer, right? That's yes. Okay, God, I need money. I really need money, okay? Guess what God says? Yes, you do, right? If I say, God, you're right, so he says, yes, you do. He didn't give me any money. He just acknowledged the fact that, yes, you do need money, right? Because that's the only answer he knows is yes, right? So I said, God, thank you for the money. Thank you for the money. Even if I don't have it in my bank account yet, thank you for the money that's coming. Thank you for the security in my life, right? So I've already, in my mind, in my psyche, in my spirit, I've already received that money. I've received that by being grateful for it. So I've like trumped the law of attraction with gratitude, you know?
Gratitude.
Yeah.
Everything.
It's the bomb.
Bomb, it is.
Gratitude is the bomb.
You know, there's a doctor, his name's Dr. Daniel Amen. You'll know the Amen clinics. It's spelled like amen at the end of a prayer. Amen, right? And he learned how to do MRIs from the Army. And then he became a psychiatrist. And he's got 40 patients, and he's treating all his patients. He's going, you know what? He says, I'm in a weird position because I'm now in a profession This is a profession, the only medical profession that doesn't examine the organ it's trying to treat.
Yeah,
You know?
the brains, they
Yeah.
don't scan the brain.
So he
yeah.
started scanning the brain. He knew how to do that. He realized every one of his patients had brain damage.
There's a TED Talk on this.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a TED Talk on this.
Yeah.
Powerful, powerful.
And then he went and examined 90 murderers and 150 convicts, all brain damage. Right? So he's going, well, the problem is here we have to fix brain damage. And if you played contact sports, you know, if you drank a lot,
Yep.
you know, I remember the first day I was in rehab, they showed me my brain on a brain scan. Look, part of your brain's not even firing. You know, it's got a wet brain. You drank too much. You've done too many drugs. You know, so he said, okay, so here was his cure: eat things that are purple, highest color in the rainbow, purple, right? Purple amethyst, right? Seventh color of the scale, seventh color of the pH scale, which is just electricity, right? Highest color of the rainbow, purple, right? So this, when you look at yourself in the 7 chakras, which are like the 7 harmonics on a guitar string, right? Then there's places where energy collects, right? So this is, the energy up here is like purple and dark blue, right? So start eating blueberries, right? Blackberries, purple potatoes, purple anything you do. Then he says, hang around people that are a good influence on you, and stop hanging around people that are bad influence on you. Just learn something every day. Memorize something every day. Get that brain working.
Memorize,
Neuroplasticity.
yeah.
Unlearn something every day. He says, this is the most important thing I can tell you about rewiring your brain and fixing, actually physically fixing your brain within 2 months is to write 3 things down a day that you're grateful for. And it's like, there it is again, that gratitude bomb, you know. Just find things to be grateful for. It'll transform your whole life. I think the most important thing that happened this year before this tour was I stopped asking God for things. Anything. I'm not asking God for anything. I'm just going to be grateful. I'm just going to say thank you for this. Thank
Interesting
you for that.
shift.
Yeah.
Interesting shift. We did an episode on gratitude not long ago. For all the listeners of rock stars saying to be grateful, we all got to do it. We
Yeah.
all got to do it. I have one question that I ask all the guests. Kevin already asked his.
Blown away.
Right? So I wear this around my neck. It's a North Star.
Right.
It's the one star in the sky that never moves. It's the brightest star in the sky. It's a guide. It represents my purpose. I think that we grow, we adapt, we change. Neuroplasticity, our brain changes, our body changes, right? But I think that there's a part of us, and I know you believe this based on what you've said, that never changes.
Yeah.
What part of you never changed?
Well, I think there's the core being, you know, and I don't know, there is that spirit, right? There's that energy field that I am, right? And it's a collective energy field, right? And it's all one. And then when we become a physical being, we take part of that energy field and we call that a soul, right? Spirit to soul, right? And that soul is an individualized piece of spirit, right? The Holy Great Spirit, right? Okay, so now I've got this spirit that's just assigned to this body, right? That never changes, you know? And even though it evolves, and one of our greatest purposes, I think, in this life is to express that soul, right? So that expression of that soul is going to change within this lifetime, what we've learned on the 90 years you'll be on this planet, you know, what you've learned. But I think that is the only thing that's unchanged. And I love the North Star analogy, you know, because, you know, the Northern Lights and all that stuff, and how the stars never change, you know, they all seem to revolve around that North Star. I think that's a great analogy, you know. And I think we need things like that, artistic, symbolic things to keep ourselves kind of grounded like that. So I think that's a great thing.
Speaking of artistic things, anything you want to plug before you jam out? What did you say? You keep up the chops before you
Gotta
get the
keep
chops
up
going.
The chops,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is there anything you want to talk about? Anything that you have going on? Any?
Well, we're starting to work on an album. It's gonna be called The Parallel Kingdom, right? And we're gonna be selling that from our tour with the Kingdom Come thing, and I think that's gonna, I'm really excited about it. That's gonna happen this year. I'm gonna get to do some recording and get some of these songs down. We're playing the Monsters of Rock cruise. February. We were there 2 years ago, and we were there on February 22nd, 2/22, right? And it was like one of those amazing full moons that only happens every 83,000 years or something. And I found myself that night on the Norwegian cruise line, rock and roll, the Monsters of Rock cruise, Shredders of the Deep, right? It's 12:12. I'm looking down, and we're going on stage. I'm looking up, and there's a giant moon right above the boat, right? And it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. Now we're doing that again on the 22nd of February. I don't know what the shift or the phase of the moon's going to be, but it just feels like, okay, 2 years later, I'm back to do this cruise again. So we're doing that on February 22nd in Miami, the pre-cruise party and stuff like that. And then that was kind of a grueling tour, especially for a bunch of 50 and 60-year-old men. It was like we had to stop the bus all the time. You know what I mean? It was like, I'm cold, I'm hot. You're going through menopause, I'm not. And so it was a little weird. So now this will be a little easier. We're going to do weekend warrior things. We're going to play a Friday and Saturday night in Seattle, and then we're going to go play in Brazil, and then here and there. So it should be a really good year. So I don't, I'm always pumping that. Please, if you see Kingdom Come playing someplace, come out. I also have another band that's in that I have here in Jacksonville called Schizophrenic Sky, and I had a Schizophrenic Sky in Los Angeles. I've written a movie. I've written actually 8 movies, and a movie I have a hard copy of that's completely done. It's called Schizophrenic Sky. And I'm trying to get that made. It's actually in development with a company right now, and that was part of my trip to. So just things like that. If you see Schizophrenic Sky playing around town, come out and see us. I played at a fundraiser with Schizophrenic Sky, and I sang the Star Spangled Banner. And I was like, oh my God, at this age, and I've never sang the Star Spangled Banner before. And I was like, hope I can remember the lyrics. But, and I think everybody learned from Stevie Ray Vaughan when he got booed for, he's like, well, I'll just play slide. And I'll slide into all the notes, and then people started booing him. He didn't prepare. So I got really prepared for this. But it was really an awesome gig, and we raised some money, and just singing the Star Spangled Banner and then getting into it. So those are the things I can promote.
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean? And if they happen, that's great. If they don't, I'm still going to be happy. Whatever happens, I've kind of found this formula of grateful. It's like I used to wake up, and before my feet touched the ground, I would call my crack dealer. Right now, I call God. And the first thing I do in the morning, and that sets off the morning, I try to do a morning meditation. I try to get on this Beamer I have. If you want to buy a Beamer, talk to me, even though the lady next door has sold about 40 of them. And,
Beamer?
Yeah, what is the Beamer?
Beamer is it's a Swiss-made, German-designed a PMF generator, right? We're probably right now we're just completely saturated with EMFs, right? Electromagnetic fields.
See. Yeah, okay.
Right, and which come from these 60 cycle plugs and stuff. But now we got Wi-Fi, we got cell phone towers. It's just crazy. You look at patents from the 60s about mind controls. All they said, we have to increase the EMFs, and then we can control other people's minds, right? And 60 cycles. 60 pictures a second on the TV, and it's like this hypnotic thing. And I don't know if you're ever watching TV, and all of a sudden they're eating pizza, and you're hungry for pizza.
Oh yeah.
Right, and it's like it just programs your whole mind.
That's why meditation is so key. So
Yeah.
you can get rid of all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can learn how to stay the master.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. And close.
All I thought of was like a BMW.
Yeah.
like a Beamer. I'm like, well,
it's
if you're selling those,
the
you know.
Beamer, I sell them for $6,200.
Yeah.
It's a sheet. It's a PMF, pulse electromagnetic frequencies, right? It's like if you laid on the earth, you would get pulse electromagnetic frequencies. And if you laid there long enough, your inflammation would go down by 50%.
Interesting.
For 40 minutes on the beach, and science has proved your inflammation levels go way down, right? And a million other things. Now, we are animated earth. That's what human meant, that we are earth animated. Now, the Schumann resonance, right, with the earth emitting these PMFs, and then we have the same energy within us as the earth does. So when I give someone a hug, they're actually receiving PMFs. A child dies within its first year on this planet if it doesn't get enough PMFs. That means its mother needed to hug it a certain amount of time and hold it a certain amount of time, or there's death. So it's really like the fifth element of health. We all know we need light, we all know we need water, we all know we need air, and we all know we need food, right? But what we forget about is the PMFs, right? And it's actually a need we have, and it's like the higher we go, if you live in a 30-story building, you're probably not getting too many natural PMFs up on that building, so you need a beamer.
Interesting.
So you get on this thing, and what it really does, I'm not allowed to say a whole lot about it. I'm an independent, authorized dealer of this. And one thing the FDA doesn't want us to say hardly anything besides this will relax you and help you sleep, but it's about microcirculation, and many people have been cured of incurable diseases from this. This is Dr. Oz was on TV talking about it, and he says this is the future of medicine.
Interesting.
It really is. It's when you look at all the problems like cardiac pulmonary disease or something, and we're going to have to take this artery this big out of your heart, and we're going to replace it with a valve, a plastic valve, right? It's like, can you imagine, if that big a thing's wrong, how about the microcirculation in your body? How about, it's, so this actually fixes the microcirculation, which is 74% of your body. And which is going to fix all the capillaries in your lungs. You're going to start getting better oxygen. Your mind's going to start working better. Your digestion's going to start working better. You're going to start having cell death on a timely manner. Like, you're not going to hang on to cells that should have died 2 months ago and now are causing you depression and whatever else. They're going to die in a timely manner, like they were supposed to die. Cells are supposed to die. And so this is an amazing thing, and I'm really glad I got it. As soon as I got this, I realized that I was smarter. I was thinking better, and I thought, maybe turn some of this intuition in on your own health, because I had been suffering with depression, anxiety, insomnia, and heartburn, acid reflux for 9 years since I'd gotten off drugs. And I went to doctors, and I didn't like what they told me. We're going to put you on a neurotoxin to sleep. We're going to put you on a neurotoxin for anxiety. We're going to put you on a neurotoxin for your depression. And we're going to put you on an anti-acid for your reflux. I said, well, okay, so you're going to dumb down my mind so it doesn't think as right, so I can sleep and not be depressed, right? You're going to actually poison my organs, right? And then you're going to actually reduce the acid in my stomach, so I don't start, so I can't get the nutrition out of my food. Doesn't sound like a good deal to me, So I said I turned this intuition inward, and I said, you know what? All my problems are right here in my stomach. I make 90% of my serotonin in my stomach. 94% of the people walking around on the planet do not have a proper gut flora, so they're not making the serotonin. So guess what? They're not sleeping. They have anxiety, they have depression, they have all these other things, plus they have the heartburn, right? And in this country, we're going to give you antidepressants and
Stay healthy, folks.
Yeah.
Eat healthy, stay healthy.
What I did, I went, you know what? Okay, so I've been trying to ask doctors for years, do I have too much acid in my stomach? Do I have not enough? Well, we don't know. Well, it's ridiculous. Of course, I don't have Of course, I don't have enough acid in my stomach, So, and you're reducing it even more, right? So I'm not getting nutrition in my food. The stomach sensors in my stomach are going, open the sphincter up, so I'm getting the reflex, right? I'm not making the serotonin, having all these problems. As soon as I started taking enzymes and hydrochloric acid pills, right, adding acid to my stomach, adding digestive problems, I slept like a baby that night. I haven't been depressed since. I haven't had anxiety since. And
good.
I don't have heartburn anymore.
Good.
You know, so I'm like completely healed myself. And I have to give some of that credit to that Beamer thing, that it actually cleared my mind enough so that I could see through my problem and fix it.
Love it.
You know?
Love
Well,
it.
you blew us away for sure.
Yeah.
I'm mind blown. I really appreciate you sitting down and going hyperconscious
I appreciate
and
you guys.
Yeah, you
and,
went super
and digging
hyperconscious.
deep.
Yeah.
We'll get off this and we'll set up, and then you can play. You can jam out with us,
Okay.
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, and we will
Thank
talk to you
you.
later.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for listening to another episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast.
Going hyperconscious will absolutely change your life, because if you understand why something is the way it is, now you have the power to change it. If you going hyperconscious with us has changed your life in any way, please share this episode with one of your friends, because the more people that go hyperconscious, the better this world's going to be for everybody.
And if you would kindly leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, that would help us make more people hyperconscious, and we would be greatly appreciative.
Thank you.
Bye.